Okay, there's this one little bit of shredded paper that didn't want to get picked up. Looking at the rest of this, I don't see much left behind. So in this case, I decided to start the video with the pickup test, as this machine is only suitable for carpeted homes or just carpeted surfaces. So as there is no bare floor pickup test for this machine, the only main test is carpet. I figured we'd get that out of the way, because performance is generally the thing that a lot of people care about when it comes to vacuums. And its ability to get everything up, not too bad. There's a couple little bits over here. But overall, considering the amount of debris, that was a mix of crushed and chunks of saltine crackers, shredded paper, and a few scent tablets or beads as well. So we can see that the results with the Bissell 1797, pretty good. Got up everything with no issues. And if we remove the canister and check the filter, not too bad. A little bit of dust on it, but nothing too major. So like I said, there's just one little piece of shredded paper that I didn't want to pick up for whatever reason. But everything else, it got up just fine. So the results of the pickup test with this Bissell are a pretty good start to this review. What's up, guys? IntelliTech Studios here, and today we are going to be doing, by popular request, the full review of the Bissell PowerForce Turbo Rewind PET. Now, I also have the non-PET variant of this machine, which is being replaced by the PET variant to my knowledge, since I have the older PET variant, but that machine is no longer functioning. That's the model 2692, and it appears that Bissell has dropped that machine and discontinued it and replaced it by simply rebranding the non-PET variant as the PET variant. So we have the exact same machine in the exact same color with the exact same attachments, features, and model numbers. This one is not called PET and this one is called PET. A little bit confusing, but nevertheless, these are the exact same machine. Anyways, so I just got my replacement of the PowerForce Helix Turbo Rewind PET, which, again, for some reason is older than the machine that it replaced in terms of model number, but this is a current unit. It was manufactured in 2021. It says it was manufactured on the 304th day of 2021, excuse me, obviously not 2001. And so I haven't had this for too terribly long, but I can say with confidence that it's identical to the previous blue variant of this unit that I have extended usage of and have been using so often, in fact, that the motor has died in it. And I'm not blaming that on the machine, because I did abuse the machine and use it for a lot more than what it was capable of and what it was recommended. To put it bluntly, I used it for a lot of DIY, a lot of cleaning up of flooded areas with a lot of dirty water and a lot of fine dust, to the point where the entire machine has just kind of gotten ruined. So despite that, Bissell did still replace the entire machine under warranty, since I was too far away from a service center, and considering the fact that they did not have to do that at all, certainly speaks volumes for their customer service. So this replacement machine is identical to the 2692 model, with the exception being, and I should say both of these are, because these are both the same machine as each other, with the exception being the color. The turbo brush is slightly different. On this one, the turbo brush is just basic bristles, whereas on the other machine, the turbo brush was a sort of rubber fin design. Neither of them work very well. I'll discuss that later on in the review. And the former PET variant, the 2692, also came with the PET corner tool, which I don't have at my current house anyways. It's still at my dad's in a random drawer. But I can say if you do have that corner tool, it works very well, and it's actually a very nice attachment. I just can't demo it right now, and since they don't come with these anymore anyways, it seems like there's not much of a point. But as far as the attachments that these do come with, we have an upholstery tool, which is a turbo brush. It's not really an upholstery tool. I don't know why I said that. But this is a turbo brush, and it does not work very well at all, unfortunately. Anytime you apply any pressure to it, to any surface, it just stops. And this is not an issue with the vacuum itself. It's just an issue with the turbo tool. If you use another turbo tool with this machine, like the turbo tool from a more expensive Bissell, or if you use one from an older Bissell, or if you use Dyson's tangle-free turbine tool, which fits on this machine, all those turbo brushes work without a hitch. So the machine has enough power, it's just this turbo brush is unfortunately not the best, and I'll demonstrate that in a sec. Then on the back here we have a dusting brush, which this dusting brush is a little bit softer than the one on this unit, so it seems like they've improved that over the years, but it's still a little bit too stiff for me to recommend that you dust anything delicate. But as far as dusting something that isn't delicate, like a coffee table or drapes or blinds or getting up in corners, it's perfectly fine for doing that. Or if you want to use this as an upholstery brush, that's what I tend to use it as. Since the turbo brush isn't very useful, I end up just using this as a dusting brush and an upholstery tool, as long as, again, you don't use it on anything too soft. So no TV screens, but again, if you want to use it on lampshades, on tables, on books, bookends, that sort of thing, you can get away with using all that with this tool, and for that purpose it works just fine. And that tool stores right here on the back, and we can see there's also an extension wand and crevice tool. Both of these are way too short, and the amount of reach you give with this machine is not very good at all. But you can purchase a longer crevice tool and a longer extension wand. But for me personally, this is one of the reasons why there's a different Bissell machine that I recommend over this that uses bags. That's the Sanitaire SL4110A, and that's only about $50 more than this machine, depending on where you get it from. But if you don't want to spend that money, this is the experience. You can buy extra extension wands and a longer crevice tool if you want, but out of the box, you're not going to get a lot of reach. And there's no handle on the hose either. It's just the hose end, which I actually prefer, because you can actually, if you just want to hold the end of the hose, you can do that, unlike the older PowerForces. But this is all the reach you get, and unlike the older PowerForces where you could use the brush on the end of the crevice tool as an extension, you can't do that here either. So that's the amount of reach that you get. It's not very good. You're going to have to stretch the hose a lot, and you're not going to get a lot of reach. So if you have a lot of really high ceilings and you don't want to invest more money into the machine, then that could be a problem. You can also see that the hose fits over the tool, so any dust actually ends up settling on the attachment, and you have to kind of wipe it on your carpet before you put it back, and then just vacuum your carpet afterwards. But that stores right here on board. This hose pushes in right here. One thing that is nice that I will mention about these attachments is that Dyson attachments actually do work, at least if they're a newer Dyson attachment. So, for example, I mentioned the Dyson tangle-free turbine tool, the ones that are designed to go with the DC-25, DC-41, etc. That works very well. You can see that pops on just like that, and if you do turn it on, it does spin up. And other attachments like the soft dusting brush do work as well. So if you like this machine but you just feel like the attachments are lackluster, you can use Dyson attachments on these Bissells, which I think is really nice. So while you don't have a standard 1.25" fitting, and these do use proprietary attachments to an extent, you can use attachments from other companies like Dyson, Kenmore, and Panasonic, and they do work on this machine, which is really nice. So you can still get a nice array of attachments for this machine if you so choose. So for some reason I've kind of covered the attachments a little bit out of order, so we'll go ahead and show you using the turbo brush and the issue that I mentioned, and then we'll go into the overview of this machine. A little bit out of order in this one, mixing it up a little bit today. So I'll show you the turbo brush on my couch. Alright, here's my couch, here's the turbo brush, And I'll show you the exact issue that I mentioned where this stops. So as we can see, using the stock turbo brush that the machine came with, even whenever you just rest the turbo brush on the upholstery, it just immediately stops. There's no way to get it to stop unless you literally basically hover it over to where it's barely even making contact with the couch. And that is one thing that Bissell has not improved over the years. Again, the original 1797 version of this, well, I can't say that because of the same model number now, but this machine originally launched in 2016, and it still has this problem several years later. So Bissell has not addressed the issue of the turbo brush being poor quality, and I would honestly rather them just include a basic upholstery tool if they're going to include this type of turbo brush. Now, there are other upholstery tools you can get that'll fit on the end of this. Like I mentioned, a lot of Dyson attachments do work on this. So if you want to use the attachment from a Dyson, you can, in fact, something like a standard Dyson upholstery tool or mattress tool will work and will fit on the hose just fine. But as far as anything that actually goes with this machine, you're relatively limited on options. So it would be nice if Bissell offered a better quality turbo brush. Now, in the older version of this machine, the blue one that I previously had, where it came with that pet hair corner tool, that was a decent solution, because for a couch like mine, that corner tool works just fine, because this couch is a relatively thin surface. It doesn't trap a lot of hair. A lot of the hair and dust that is on it is just sitting on top of it, so any straight suction attachment cleans it just fine. So a turbo isn't even really all that necessary to clean my couch. So as a result, the actual experience of trying to clean this is not very good unless you're willing to use the dusting brush as a makeshift upholstery tool, which you can do, and I do often do with this machine as of late. It's just not quite an ideal experience. Obviously, every other tool is exactly how you'd expect it, and since there isn't very good reach, it's kind of hard to get up into corners and get up into the actual corners of my room, since my ceilings are a little bit high up. They're not really high ceilings per se, but they're higher than some other places. So it's just one of those things where the reach on this isn't that great. Now, if you have stairs and you're trying to use the machine on stairs, if you want to leave the machine at the bottom of your steps, like you're generally recommended to do with most uprights, the hose will stretch up to about the 8th step. So if you have a landing in between your stairs and each staircase themselves are 8 steps or less, then this machine will be perfectly fine and get all the way up your stairs. But if your steps are any longer than that in a single staircase, then it's not going to reach all the way up your stairs, and you're going to have to balance it at the top to get the last few steps. And you're just going to have to hope that you're very careful and don't drop the machine, or just use something else for that purpose, or just try to balance the machine on the stairs, which can certainly be a little bit tricky and awkward. Okay, now that we've covered the attachments, again, we're going a little bit out of order. Now we're going to go to the main overview of the machine, what it looks like, what it offers, and generally how to use it. Now, starting from bottom to top, we can see we have the main brush roll right here. This machine has a wide cleaning path, and it has a relatively wide brush roller. If you look underneath, we have our height adjustment wheels. We have the several screws to get to the brush roll and to the belt. This uses a standard Bissell style 7, 9, 10 belt. I'll link those in the description. Incredibly common belt. You can find them anywhere. I recommend changing the belt in this machine about every 6 months, depending on your usage. If you use this less, maybe get away with about every 8 months. If you use it more, you can probably get away with about 3 to 4 months. It really just depends on your usage, the thickness of your carpet, and whether or not you are using the height adjustment properly and properly adjusting it to your carpet. If you adjust it way too low, then you're going to wear out your belt a lot faster. You also want to make sure to keep hair and everything off of this brush roller. Bissells are known to, if a lot of hair collect on the brush rollers, where the end caps will actually melt to the brush roller and the brush roll will seize up, and at that point you'll have to replace the brush roll. So as long as you keep this brush roll clean, make sure it's spinning freely, and change the belt often, you shouldn't have that problem. It's just something to keep an eye on. And since this particular machine has a clear window on the front, it's a lot easier to see if the brush roller is working properly. This machine does not have a brush roller shutoff, it just has a basic stretch belt, so any amount of usage of this machine will have the brush roller spinning, and if there is not, there is a problem. Now if the brush will stop spinning and you smell a burning smell, don't throw the vacuum away. That's probably not the main motor. It's probably just the belt burning up. It is a rubber belt and it can burn if this brush roll gets jammed on something. There's no safety mechanism. This is a very budget upright, and if that happens, you're just going to have to replace the belt and make sure to clean up this entire section so the new one doesn't break. And if you struggle with that, then you may want to take it to your local vacuum shop and have them do that for you. Right here, we have our 5-position height adjustment. Now, in my case, it's on medium-high setting. So there's a high carpet, medium-high, middle, medium-low, and low. It says bare floor, but don't listen to that. This machine is not bare floor friendly. There's no type of squeegee or gasket or anything on the floor, so it's just going to spit debris behind it. And the brush roller is constantly spinning, so it could potentially damage your floors or the machine. Looking up right here, we have a washable post motor filter. This just pops right out. On the cheaper units, this filter is not accessible, unfortunately, unless you tear down the machine, but this is a nice washable filter. So you can wash this about every 6 months or a year. I generally find that that's not necessary to wash it that often. I generally recommend washing this about every year, but again, it depends on your usage. And see, I just try to put it in upside down, but that just slides in right there. If you do wash it, make sure it's completely dry before you put it back in. Right over here, we have our 2-position handle release lever. So you press this and the handle comes down, and you can lift the power foot over any transition strips or rugs. Push the button again and it lies not completely flat, but almost flat. You can see if I let it lay down, this does pop up a bit, but you can go about this low before you start to pull the head up. So because of the cyclone assembly, there isn't very much clearance as far as getting underneath low furniture, but as far as getting underneath basic things like an open bottomed coffee table, you can do that just fine. Mine does it with no problems. Right back here, this red button is the power switch. Press that to turn the machine on and off. Right up here, this black button is the button for the cord rewind mechanism. We can see that I have the cable coming out of the cord rewind and up into the upper cord hook, which the upper cord hook is right here, right by where the hose is. The hose just pulls right out of here. It's just a friction fit. There's no clips or anything to hold the hose in, and the hose snaps in right here if you want to release it to access it in case there's a clog. Extension wand and crevice tool store right here on this peg back here. Dusting brush fits right back here. Now looking at the canister of the machine, there is a button right here on the top. This is also your carrying handle, so you carry it by this handle right here, very similar to a Dyson. You press this empty button, although this doesn't actually empty it, this just releases it from the machine. And you press this gray button over your trash can to empty out the contents of this bin. The cyclone also twists out from the bottom if you like to do that, or you can actually twist this piece off and disassemble this entire cyclone without tools, which is something that I love about Bissells. You can disassemble this entire cyclone assembly with not even a Phillips head screwdriver, just all by hand. That's one thing I love about this machine. And we can pull the filter, or we can pull this latch right up here and get access to the filter. In fact, on the clean machine, I'll show you how all of this works, since obviously this machine hasn't had any dust in it, so I can show you all of this without getting dirt anywhere. So pressing this button empties this. Pressing this gray button empties this into your trash can. Once you close it up, you can twist this and the entire cyclone comes off, and you can wash all these pieces. Cyclone pops out like that, and you can even, well, yeah, there is a way to twist this apart. It's not super necessary, but there is a way to twist. Oh, you just pull this straight off. Okay. So you can disassemble all of this without any tools. And then when you put this back in, these two notches are slightly different size. So you just have to line these up. Just like that. It can be a little tricky. There we go. Once you pop that back on, we can line this up right here and click that into place. And then put this back on and twist this into the locked position, and now this is all back together. And again, open this, filter is right here, so you can literally wash this entire thing if it gets dirty with not any tools at all. You need 0 tools to completely disassemble this dual cyclonic cassette and clean out everything, which is a feature I do really like about these Bissells. While the filtration on these Bissells are not the best, they are what you'd expect for the price point, and as long as you keep track with the filter maintenance on these, then you will be probably fine. Still not the best choice for allergy sufferers, but for just your basic usage, it should be okay as long as you stay on top of the maintenance of both of these filters. If you're really worried about it, I'd recommend either getting a bag machine like the Bissell Powerlifter Bag Pet, or investing in an air purifier to get any particulates that may escape out of the exhaust of this machine. So that's pretty much the entire basic overview. This is a very basic, simplistic machine, so there isn't much as far as how to use it. Everything on it is very simple and very easy to use. Now, as far as the noise level of this machine has an 8 amp motor, at least I believe it does. Yes, it has an 8 amp motor. Both of these do. And the motor is a lot quieter than a lot of the previous Bissell motors, but it is very high pitched. So if you have a very small space, the vacuum could sound very loud and very shrill and shrieky. So it really just depends on the environment that you're in. In my house, this vacuum is perfectly tolerable, but in my old place, where my living room was a lot more condensed and a lot more closed, these sounded horrible, and they were just a killer on your ears. It really just depends on whether your ears are more sensitive to higher pitched or lower pitched noises. If your ears are more sensitive to higher pitched noises, maybe a vacuum in this price range isn't for you, because a lot of them are going to sound pretty bad even out of the box. But as far as the way it sounds like, this vacuum is very lightweight. It's very easy to push and to pull. So I do really love these machines because they still have a hose, so they're still very accessible and they're very simple, yet they're still incredibly lightweight, easy to maneuver and easy to transport. Sure, they're not as light as something as like an Auric, but they're a lot more versatile than an Auric because they have onboard tools, and because of the attachment fitting, you can very easily adapt a bare floor tool to attach to the hose to be able to use this machine on hard floors. And the cord is 25 feet long, so it's not great, but the cord is actually much better quality than it is on the other unit, which I've noticed that. This cord actually feels like it has a nice rubber coating, and I'm hoping that this newer cord will survive and age a lot better than the older Bissell cords. Now again, you do have a cord clip right here that keeps it out of the way. And we do have a cord rewind mechanism, which is a lot stronger than the last generation version of this machine that's not the PET. Although it still is a little bit slow once you start to run out of cord and the last little bit goes in. So sometimes you have to grab that little bit of cord and kind of feed it in while you push the button. But overall, it works just fine. When you do pull out the cord, you want to stop once you get to this yellow marker. If you see the red marker right here, if you see this red, that's all the cord. Press the button and push this back in until you don't see the red marker anymore. You should not be able to see the red marker. You don't want to pull it out that much. You want to let that little bit of cord stay inside the cord winder so that way you don't break it. But beyond that, this machine is very, very simple, and the review of this is, compared to a lot of my other reviews, relatively short, because my recommendation of this has not changed. If you are dead set on a bagless machine in around the $60 to $70 price range, and you really want a cord rewind, this is an excellent option. There are other options from companies like Hoover, but those are progressively getting more expensive, and based on my very poor experience with TTI's build quality and warranty, even though those machines feel better built than this machine is, it ultimately doesn't matter if you happen to be unlucky and get one that is bad, and the company will do nothing to help you. So based on that experience, I've actually elevated my recommendation of this machine. Now, I still recommend bagged machines, and I still think this cord rewind is another mechanism that can break, so I generally don't recommend it. But because the bagless versions of these machines often have the cord wind around back and it's very awkward to get to, I can tolerate it more on this machine, and I've yet to have one of these cord rewinds fail. So I will be using this a little bit more frequently, at least for a little bit, in my rotation. And if this cord rewind does break on me, you will definitely hear from me in that report. But overall, if you are looking for a bagless machine with a cord rewind in around the $70 price range, and you're unwilling to go bagged, and you just really want something that will clean your carpets okay for the price range, and yeah, you're willing to put a little bit of effort into maintaining the filters, then I think this is a perfectly valid choice. Now, as far as the pre-motor filter, because I don't think I mentioned how often you should wash that, you should wash the pre-motor filter about every 1 to 3 months, depending on your usage, and that also depends on how many times you fill up the bin. So the fill line is right here, but generally you just have to empty it before it reaches the cyclone so it doesn't cover that up and you don't start to lose suction and bleed dust into the motor. So, if you are looking for a machine of this caliber, then this is definitely one that I can recommend, but it's still not as high on my recommendation list as a Sanitaire SO4110A or even the Powerlifter Bagged Pet, because the Powerlifter Bagged Pet you can usually find for around $100, only a few dollars more than this, and that machine, while it doesn't have a core rewind, it gives you better filtration because of the fact that you have a bagged machine and can put HEPA bags in it. It otherwise is pretty much identical, is able to get a little bit further under low furniture since it doesn't have the cyclone, and it has 5 feet of longer cord. That machine has a 30-foot cord, this has a 25-foot cord, and personally I feel like that makes all the difference. So if you can go with the Powerlifter Bagged Pet, I say choose that one. But if you don't want a bagged machine, you want a bagless machine specifically, and you're willing to deal with the sacrifices of having to clean the filters, then this is a perfectly serviceable option in that price range for a home that has mostly carpets and doesn't have too much upholstery and high reach places to get into, or at the very least that you would need to do with this vacuum. If you have a second vacuum to take care of that, as well as the hard floors, then that would be fine. For example, if you get a Bissell Zing bagged, which I have one in a matching color scheme to this, if you get one of those to use for your upholstery and for your bare floors, and you want to combine that with this to have this to deep clean your carpets, and something like a $60 Bissell Zing to do your upholstery and your above the floor areas, that could be a pretty solid combo. Now, if you do go that route, the attachments aren't interchangeable between the two, but that still is a really good route if you want a complete home cleaning solution for not a ton of money and you're willing to split it between 2 different machines. So anyways, this is Intelitech Studios with my full review of the Bissell PowerForce Turbo Rewind Pet Model 1797. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. I will link the vacuum itself. I will link all of the filters and the belt, and if I can find one, a replacement brush roller in the description. So that way, if you need any of those parts, then hopefully you will find that helpful. So anyways, if you like this, be sure to drop a like on this video, and I will see you guys in the next Intelitech Studios review. Have a good one. Peace.